for all things World Cup and football, or some people call it soccer. Mike Bako, sports editor at dailynational.com. Good to see you, and good to have you back. I never asked you, are you calling it football or soccer, by the way?
Depends who we're talking to. We kind of have to go with the nomenclature of the world game. So we're going to go with football, but we could stick with soccer.
I got yelled at
whichever one you want to go.
I got yelled at by our team because I said soccer, and then they quickly corrected me, so I'm required to call it football.
Don't call it a field, call it a pitch.
It has been a wild World Cup. Let's start with this match first. Argentina and Netherlands. It was just crazy.
It was crazy, and what you got from it was just the beauty of the game, the beauty of the star players, Messi doing it from all angles with that all-timer of an assist, getting the goal as well, and then going into penalty kicks. I mean, it's what the theme of this World Cup has almost been about. You look at Croatia doing it on penalty kicks. You saw that Morocco was able to upset Spain on penalty kicks. So while the drama of the sport is not in so much, the goal scoring and the amount of goals, defensive efforts, the teams are so evenly matched. And then when it goes to these penalty kicks, it just heightens the drama. The drama is already heightened with so much on the line. And then with these penalty kicks, I mean, it's the heightened drama that goes into these events. And that's why the World Cup is what it is. And it also draws in the casual fan. If you're watching, you may not understand the intricacies of the gameplay and where players are on the field, but everyone can kind of figure out, okay, each team's going to get 5 kicks. Whoever scores the most goals, what's going to happen? And then certainly in a game like Brazil with Croatia, Neymar not even getting that 5th kick, being on the sidelines because Brazil was not able to score and the Croatian goaltender doing what he did.
Yeah, I saw that bounce off the, I think it was the left goal, I guess the goal post, but
the goal post, yep.
Then you had this penalty kick with the Brazil and Croatia. Now, some out there are saying there could have been better. There you can see a photo of it. There you can see, people are saying there could be better refereeing. And there's always, no matter who the loser is, there's always some complaints about the way these games are officiated. And I want to get your take on, is there legitimacy to that complaint?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If we were in October and we were having this conversation, we could talk about the umpires being better. If we were having this conversation in February with the NFL playoffs, the referees should have been better. So that's all fans in this heightened environment with championships on the line, national pride on the line, this event only happening every 4 years, and really the variance of what's going on the field. I mean, soccer, football is known for players diving. Now, part of that is what goes into the sort of culture of football and what's going on. But there's so many more eyeballs that are going on when it comes to the World Cup. So again, has the refereeing been perfect? No. Has it cost any teams games? No. There was that one play earlier in the round where it almost looked like a player, I think it was on the Japanese team, almost looked like the ball had gone over the line, and they microscopically went in and saw and upheld the goal. So with those sorts of things, with video replay, some of those judgment calls are taken out. Technology is put to good use. So the refereeing, not the major story that I think a lot of the losing teams and losing nation fans make it out to be.
Let's talk money, because that's what we're really good at, I think, is talking about money and sports. They spend a lot of money. And there's no way they're going to, we said, what is it, 220 billion, and they might get 10, 20 billion dollars. I mean, you're never going to get that money back, right? Which is not really the goal, because there's pride involved. How do you measure if this or any World Cup is a success? Is it, I mean, obviously we love watching the game, but is that how we define success?
It's a different standard when it comes to Qatar. You look at what they've been trying to do from the sports PR world. Some are calling it sports washing when it comes to golf and investing so much money in the LIV tournament, which we've talked about. It's really not about, can they turn a profit? Of course not. They're spending $200 billion building stadiums, building infrastructure. This is part of their long-term PR plan. They're even floated an idea of trying to host an Olympic Games, summer or winter games. So you put nothing past them when it comes to them trying to build up their nation status from a PR perspective, from a sporting perspective. This is about them getting onto the world stage. Many, many questions involved in terms of how these stadiums were built, the migrants that were brought in, and all of those things. And certainly one of the stories that's almost underreported has been the controversies leading into the games, and then those not really being covered and coming to fruition. But in terms of will they make a profit? No. Will those stadiums be put to other use? Possibly, maybe. There's no other nation in the world that could put on these sorts of games and build these stadiums from scratch. You look at past World Cup hosts, you look at past Olympic games, they all rue the day when they end up with these stadiums that are dilapidated, that cost tens of millions of dollars to maintain over the years.
People forget that these games were supposed to be held during the summertime, but because of the incredible heat in that area of the world, that got moved to basically wintertime, or I don't know, wouldn't call it wintertime, but less hot time.
Correct.
Do you think precedence has been set that whichever country, gets these important matches, and it doesn't have to be football, it could be any sport, that people are willing to move literally the schedule around to adjust to the country or countries that are hosting these events? Because I've never heard of this before.
You've never heard of this before. Money talks, of course, and there was a huge amounts of controversy back 10 plus years ago when not only were these games awarded, but the 2018 games in Russia were awarded. Lots of controversy involved in that. Just how exactly did these two non-soccer nations get these games? Obviously, we've come to find out that there was a lot of corruption involved in that. But one thing that is interesting, and you talk about money talks, you're going to see this, I believe, with the Winter Games coming up. There are only so many host cities that are even interested in hosting these games. And when you take into account climate change, when you take into account even when they were being hosted in places like Sochi in Russia and recently in other supposedly cold environments this past Winter Games as well, they're having a hard time managing this. So does money talk? Does a nation that wouldn't necessarily be a Winter Game host come about and take these games and they play them whenever?
Mike, I'm up against the clock. Very quickly, you think sponsors are happy with the World Cup so far?
I think sponsors are happy, and I think Fox is happy. Record ratings all the way around.